Ed Kim. I'm Vice President of Industry Analysis at Auto Pacific. Who is Auto Pacific? Auto Pacific is a market research and consulting firm that specifically focuses on the auto industry. There are many other market research firms out there that also look at other industries, but we're specifically automotive focused. So we're a relatively small group. We're headquartered just right down the street in Tustin, right off of 5 and Jamboree. So we're very, very local. We've been in business for 27 years now. We've been doing this for quite a long time. Here's a look at some of our client lists. Look at some of our clients. We deal with most of the major automakers out there. A lot of the auto suppliers being basically companies that provide parts and components to the automakers. We also work with several ad agencies, things like that. So, if you're a car company or an automotive supplier, how do you know your customers, particularly from a global context? How do you know who your competition is? Especially when in the U.S. market alone, there are over 300 separate nameplates for sale in the U.S. Everything from Toyota Camry, Honda Accord, Ford Explorer, Mercedes S-Class. There are 300 individual nameplates. So how do you know what your competition is up to? How do you know your market or markets? Most automakers now are indeed global players. What if you have dozens of markets? It's not an easy job. So you need help if you're a manufacturer or a supplier. So that's exactly where Auto Pacific comes in. Auto Pacific, basically, you can think of our company as operating in three buckets, 3 separate buckets, but all these 3 buckets interact very closely with each other. The recession has led to some pretty substantial changes in who is buying new vehicles. Over the last few years, since the recession, it's middle and lower income households that have been hit the hardest. Over the last few years, even through economic recovery, they've been more focused on meeting basic needs than addressing wants. Now, the reason that's an important point is because vehicles have become so durable, and so long-lasting, and so reliable that, let's say you have a 10-year-old Toyota Camry. Well, you might be sick of that Toyota Camry. You may really want a new car, but you probably don't really need to replace it because that 10-year-old Camry probably runs just fine. Therefore, if you're a middle or lower income family, you may be more concerned with, say, fixing that leaky roof that you haven't been able to fix since the recession started. You may be more focused on paying for your education or other things like that. Therefore, buying and replacing new vehicles has kind of, over the last few years, sort of moved down the priority list for many, many people. On the other hand, in contrast, affluent earners, despite having some higher tax burdens now than in the past, are doing comparatively well. They're not necessarily worried about putting food on the table. So those who can afford new vehicles today are much more affluent than the average pre-recession new vehicle buyer. And here's some data to back up that point. I want you to first focus on the red line up there. This is Auto Pacific data, our own data, showing median household income for new vehicle buyers from 2006 to 2012. So basically, for people who bought new cars, this is not total population. This is just people who bought new cars. This is their income. So back in 2006, pre-recession, the average household income of a new vehicle buyer was $75,000. You can see that over time it has gone up dramatically. It's gone up to $90,000 in 2012, and actually, incidentally, for 2013, it's also it has stayed put at $90,000. So the median income of new vehicle buyers has gone dramatically. In fact, by 20%. Here is where we made specific recommendations to this automaker based on all of this conjoint data that we got. One is that MPG strategy, how much this automaker's MPG strategy needs to be very, very aggressive, because MPG has a huge impact on a respondent's share of preference. So what that means is that among all those attributes that we're testing, as they're doing the conjoint exercise over and over again, it's fuel economy that has the biggest impact on them choosing one vehicle over another. We also found and recommended that a powertrain strategy should include a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. That was more desirable to most people than, say, a turbo engine or a diesel engine, and so on. They want at least about 150 horsepower. What we found during the conjoint is that anything above 150 horsepower doesn't really drastically impact their share of preference. So, so if a vehicle has 160 or 170 horsepower, it didn't really have that big of an impact on them choosing one vehicle over another. It was up to about 150. That seemed to be kind of the sweet spot. Not surprisingly, for the segment, the compact sedan segment is largely driven by price. People are looking for a good value, and we found that aggressive pricing will be very likely effective. So that was another specific recommendation that we made to the client. We found that at $17,000, a price advantage of $1,000 over a competing vehicle increases share preference for that vehicle by 13 to 24%. So that's a big deal. It basically shows that people who want, people in this segment really value price. So really value price, really value fuel economy, but they want to have at least 150 horsepower. So
when you're targeting these customers or trying to find research, do you use any online databases like we've gone over in class, like MRI and Business Analyst Online, which is like an S3 product? Do you use any of that, or is it all proprietary?
So your question is, when we essentially you're asking where do we get these people from?
Yeah, exactly.
We get them through a couple of different sources. One is through, okay, so there is a company called Polk Automotive. They're headquartered in Michigan. They have a satellite office in Long Beach here. And basically what they do is they collect and compile registration data. So whatever vehicle you own, they know what you own.
They know about it.
They've got the data. And so companies like us go to them and buy that data from them. So then we end up having email addresses, phone numbers, and we can contact new vehicle owners or vehicle owners to participate in this research. There are several states that have some very specific privacy laws where we cannot go to Polk to get those to get that customer information from. And in those places, in those instances, we would go to the manufacturers themselves, say like General Motors, and say, okay, we need so many number of names of owners from these states. Can you get when you buy a new vehicle, you can opt in or out. If you live in one of these privacy states, you can opt in or out of having allowing your information to be shared. So for those states that have those privacy restrictions, the car company would give us names for those people who have opted in, and that's where we would get names in those states.
You mentioned so many different clients. Do any of them clash? Like I know some, if they're looking for you to like give them some answers or competitive intel, do they not like that you work with their competitors?
It's not generally a problem because for every project we do, we have to sign a confidentiality agreement. There's a relatively limited number of automotive research companies out there. So direct competitors work with the same research providers all the time. So, and in our industry, I mean, overall we've got a very good record of keeping things under wraps, and I mean, we all know that our businesses would be destroyed if we started doing unscrupulous things with our with our findings. So, I think it keeps us in check, and it's generally not really a problem.
What are some of the key skills that I would need to have to get a job doing this style of research, and how much can I expect to make in my first year?
That's a great question. I would say the key skills are for an entry-level job into this area are good statistical skills, data analysis skills, a good understanding of the automotive marketplace, and it always helps if you have this kind of an inherent love of automobiles. Honestly, I mean, when I started back in 1998, I was a psychology major in college. I have zero business marketing or econ background whatsoever. But I had this inherent love of cars, and that's kind of what ended up selling the company on bringing me in, even though I had very, very little experience analyzing this sort of data or understanding how the markets work and things like that. But I would say good understanding of the automotive industry and the markets and how it all operates. Good statistical and data analysis skills. Those are all very key. And incidentally, that reminds me. Auto Pacific does do internships. It is a paid internship. We generally bring in maybe 2 to 3 interns from probably about the spring, and that internship kind of lasts through the summer. And we're a fairly small company, so everybody gets their hands dirty. Everybody, including the interns, really gets a very, very hands-on experience as far as doing this sort of market research for the car companies, and learning how to read and analyze the data, what recommendations to make to this automotive client based on all this data. It's really a lot of fun. I'd be hard pressed to think of an intern that we've had that didn't enjoy the experience. So if that's something anyone here is interested in, definitely give me your contact info, and we can definitely talk in the spring. So, but to answer your question, I'd say those are the key things I think somebody should have in order to get into this business.
How about salary?
Oh, salary. It's been so long since that's a very good question. I don't know what an entry level position in this field would pay. I know that back in 1998, which was a long time ago, when I started with Auto Pacific, I had a starting salary of like $45,000 or something, and that was a long time ago. So
Pretty good.
I don't know what it would be today, but that's what I started off at in '98.
Obviously, liability and safety
Yes.
is going to be a big issue, and
Right.
people are going to be skeptic towards these new vehicles.
Yes.
So how are these companies going to market that to lower that skepticism?
Got it. Okay, so yeah, that was part B. So they don't know. So we don't know how they're going to price it, and B, we don't really understand how they're going to position it. I think the automakers themselves right now are still trying to figure it out. It's still a few years off into the future. Everything that I know about this technology and the development of it really relates to the hardware. I really haven't heard a whole lot yet about how the marketing is going to be, and I think that it's a very important challenge. It's a very difficult challenge, again, because of all the liability and variables involved. Like I said, if something catastrophic happens, that's bad, very, very bad.
Let me ask you the ultimate question: what do you drive?
I drive a very humble car, actually. I have a 2010 Volkswagen Jetta station wagon with a manual transmission. Yeah, nothing fancy.
But you get to drive these cars.
Yes, that is correct. Actually, unit is absolutely correct. Part of the reason I don't drive a fancy vehicle myself is because I'm often driving evaluation vehicles. So the automakers loan us cars all the time. You know, the latest and greatest models to test out, and you know, they want analysts like us driving their vehicles because you know, first of all, for us, it's crucial for us because we need to understand what the current state of automobiles out there is, and the automakers want us to know what their latest and greatest technologies are.
Yeah, we feel really sorry for you.
Thank you all very much.